Khalil Mack had the fourth most sacks in the NFL last year at 33 years old, and when you take into account that he didn't have any sacks in the first 3 games and the coaching staff was fired for the last 3 games, it makes his amazing season at that age even more impressive. But he is not the only impressive player that the Chargers have at that edge position. Joey Bosa, Tuli Tuipulotu, they also had good years last season, and today we are going to be breaking down and making the argument for what is possibly the best edge unit in the entire NFL. So Khalil Mack had one of the best seasons of his career last year, which is crazy to say because he has been so good for so long with the Bears and with the Raiders. But in 2022, his first year with the Chargers, he wasn't as good against the run, and he missed 11 tackles for a 20% missed tackle rate, and it led people to believe that maybe he's, on the decline. He's a 32-year-old pass rusher at that point in his career, and the Chargers traded for him to try and take that next step with Justin Herbert on his rookie contract. It wasn't a bad trade, even if that version of Khalil Mack was all that they got out of him, because he did have 8 sacks in 2022 with 2 forced fumbles, and this past season he took it to another freaking level, man, with 17 sacks, and PFF gave him 18, but he doubled his run stops with 52 run stops and 6 forced fumbles. He had the 7th most pressures in the NFL with 88, and he did not have a single penalty against him, so he wasn't like mistiming the snap, and he wasn't hitting the quarterback after he got rid of the ball or getting a face mask or anything like that. He was an extremely disciplined pass rusher. Myles Garrett, he had 1 more pressure than Khalil Mack did this past season, but he had 12 more penalties, and he also had 3 less sacks. Khalil Mack, he has proven to be an elite edge rusher that is highly disciplined, and he is a leader on this defense, and he still got it in him at 33 years old, man. He even took a pay cut in order to stay on this team with Jim Harbaugh and emphasized that he wants to play meaningful football at the end of the season, as opposed to how the season ended this past year.
Man, one of the first conversations we had, I let him know signing back here to win. I want to play meaningful football up at the end of the year. And so that was pretty much our conversation.
With how good Khalil Mack was last season, Joey Bosa may have been even better when healthy. I made a video going back and watching every single play that Joey Bosa had, and the one word that I kept coming back to with him was reckless. For better or for worse, Joey Bosa was playing with a reckless abandon, and he would flash some extremely high-level plays in run defense and in pass rush, while other times he would just lose his footing and slip on the field. He was on the ground a lot, but that turf at SoFi Stadium, a lot of people were slipping on that turf. That's a whole nother conversation. But Joey Bosa, he only played in 9 games last year, had 320 total snaps, but he did manage to get 7 sacks with 18 run stops and 1 forced fumble. Now, those are some pretty great numbers, honestly, for the limited action that he saw. And if you compare that with Khalil's numbers, and then you give Joey Bosa the amount of snaps that Khalil had with that same amount of production that he had, Joey Bosa, he would have had 20 sacks and 54 run stops, which both of those numbers are higher than what Khalil Mack was able to put up this past season. But you got to keep in mind, that's, if he is on pace to keep up that level of play that he was having during that earlier part of the year, which, nothing is for certain. He may have taken a downturn. And also, it is worth noting, kind of like how I pointed out in the beginning of this video, Khalil Mack, the first 3 weeks of the season, he didn't really get off to a good start. He got off to a pretty slow start. But there is a legitimate argument to be made here that Joey Bosa still has elite potential, and he was playing even better than Khalil Mack was before he got injured. And if you think that is a crazy argument, then I'd like for you to listen to this crazy guy who said the same thing.
Joey was having a better year than Khalil, through that stretch until he got hurt. I'll tell you guys really thrilled, Jesse Minter.
Joey Bosa, he just needs to stay healthy and stay disciplined like Khalil Mack is in order to be among the top 5 edge rushers in the NFL again. But he is a relentless pass rusher, and he also took a pay cut to stay with Jim Harbaugh. So Both of these top level edge rushers are motivated to be with this new coaching staff, and they're expected to play just as good as they did last year in an even better defense, because now we don't have Brandon Staley bringing these guys down. And when you look at Joey Bosa's highlights, it's hard not to notice Tuli Tuipulotu because of how often Tuli Tuipulotu would set up Joey Bosa for a sack on his stunt move. Tuli was the most unselfish pass rusher on this team last year, and he was constantly taking up blockers to free up his teammates, but he also put up a ton of production and showed some high-level flashes as a rookie last season. Tuli Tuipulotu had 8 sacks and 34 run stops last year, and his ability to stop the run was the most impressive thing about his game as a rookie. There were not many edge rushers in the NFL that just step right into the league and have such a high football IQ and the ability to set the edge the way that Tuli Tuipulotu did. And even though towards the end of the season, he kind of sort of stagnated a little bit, he slowed down, he showed so much promise throughout the entire year, and he even posted an elite PFF grade against the Cowboys. He had a big impact when he was on the field, and even so big that when all 3 of these guys were on the field, Tuli, Khalil Mack, and Joey Bosa, they had 10 sacks, and every single one of those were on 3rd down. 44 plays they had together last year, and they got a sack on more than 20% of those plays. The amount of formations and looks that you can give an offense with these 3 on the field at the same times when it comes to rushing the passer, it is endless. And with a guy like Jesse Minter commanding this defense, bro, I cannot wait to see the blitz packages that he creates with these guys, and then add in other guys like some of these feisty cornerbacks that we have, like Tarheeb Still, who's been impressing in practices, just like Jesse Minter even said recently. Even like Derwin James flying in on a DB blitz with these edge rushers taking up a lot of attention because they need to attract attention. I mean, you're not just going to let Khalil Mack, Joey Bosa, or Tuli Tuipulotu have a one-on-one, or even just have a free lane to the freaking quarterback. You need to block these guys because they are so good. Right now, obviously, I'm bolting up, but Jesse Minter, man, he is going to have a field day with this defense, and I think the players know it. That is why they're deciding to stick around and take pay cuts to stick around. I mean, these are like elite players that are taking pay cuts. Tuli Tuipulotu is only going to be 22 years old this season, which is younger than a lot of rookies coming into the NFL this year. So he is still learning and developing, but this is a guy who, like, if he is your best edge rusher, you're happy. If he is your second best edge rusher, then okay, you're in a good spot. But if he is your 3rd best edge rusher on your roster, you're looking really good at that position, but not good enough to the point where you're not still looking out and trying to add competition, because the Chargers, they signed Bud Dupree in free agency after the draft. He had 6.5 sacks last year, although PFF, they gave him 8 and 16 run stops. He was solid in Pittsburgh for a very long time and then signed a big contract to play for the Titans. He underwhelmed during his time there, but then he had a bounce back season last year in Atlanta. He is a very high motor and relentless pass rusher that has a ton of speed off the edge. And even though the run stops, they weren't really there as graded by PFF, when I was going back and watching tape on this dude, I saw some pretty good run defense, and he also showed the ability to set the edge consistently, so I'm not too concerned with that. But he is a great veteran presence to add to this room in order to raise the floor of this unit. That's what this signing is all about. And also, he's going to help develop the young guys with his veteran leadership, guys like Tuli Tuipulotu and Tre'Mon Morris-Brash, who is a undrafted free agent that I just talked about on Friday. And he has quietly been showing some pretty good things in practice, but you know, he's still unproven right now. He's more of a projection than anything. But the depth of this unit, it's honestly, I think it is the best in the NFL. And the only teams that I thought of that could have had a better overall edge group are like maybe the Dolphins with Bradley Chubb, Jalen Phillips, Shaq Barrett, and then they just added Chop Robinson from Penn State in the draft, but he's an unproven. So I'm not really sure. That's good depth, but it's definitely not as good at the top of the roster like Khalil Mack and Joey Bosa. I think both of those guys are better. The Steelers, they have TJ Watt. that's a really good edge rusher. But then Alex Smith, and then after Alex Smith, there's not really much else in that edge room. And then I looked at the Texans, like they have Will Anderson, Danielle Hunter now, but then after those two guys, there's really not much else. So I can comfortably say that I think the Chargers, unbiasedly, I think they have the best edge group in the NFL, both in terms of the top end talent and in terms of the floor of this unit in entirety. And it is so awesome that at the two most important positions on both sides of the ball, the Chargers, they're in the best situation. Like they have the quarterback on offense and they have the pass rushers on defense. If they want to turn this team around quickly under Jim Harbaugh, they're going to need to rely on both of those positions to win football games in today's NFL. And if you want to find out more about Tre'Mon Morris-Brash, then you can click my video right here.